Hi there, welcome. My name is Jason, and what I have to share with you tonight is a Rex begonia. This is a beautiful houseplant, also an outdoor plant, so long as it's not in direct sunlight and also not in cold weather. This plant's origins are from India, and this is a hybrid. There are countless hybrids of Rex begonia. So just know that this is a larger leaf variety. However, there are larger varieties and there are many varieties that are smaller than this one as well. So know that when choosing your begonia. Also consider the lighting. As far as the light that this plant wants, it wants bright and direct light, just no direct sunlight. And actually the Rex begonias can grow in lower lit situations than other begonias. So know that this is a lower light exposure plant. It can grow in lower lit situations. Just do make sure though that there's a window in the room that you have this plant. It doesn't want no light, but it can thrive in low light. And if you have an office space, this plant can actually grow in fluorescent lighting as well. So know that as well. If you work in an office and you have fluorescent lighting all day, this plant will work for you. As far as watering goes, I would allow the soil to dry out about 60 to 80% in between waterings. And when you look at begonias, there are a lot of different figures out there as far as like how much should I water my plant and how often, and how much should you let it dry out in between waterings. I say 60 to 80 or even more. I've actually allowed this one to dry out entirely in between waterings. And you know, it may have been dry for a couple days, a few days at times, and the leaves just still look vibrant and gorgeous. I mean, these leaves are stunning. I don't know if you can see that. Well, no, you can see that. But it's just, there's so many colors and so many earth tones. This is a gorgeous plant, and there's so many to pick from. But yeah, as far as the watering goes, just know one of the things with this begonia, as well as many other begonias, is don't overwater it. Not the most forgiving plant sometimes when it comes to overwatering. The rhizomes, they'll be susceptible to rot if you overwater your plant. That's why I say 60 to 80% in between waterings. Allow the soil to dry 60 to 80% in between waterings. Even completely dry, it should be okay, just as long as you don't leave it completely dry for a long time. And so what I recommend is once you've watered it, give your plant a lift so you know what saturated soil feels like. And so when you come back to water it again, you'll know the difference. Don't have to get it perfect. I have my plant here in a plastic container. Begonias do like shorter containers. So because, you know, the water can the soil can dry out in between waterings quicker that way. And the rhizomes can spread in there. That's what this plant spreads by. I have it in a decorative pot here that happens to be taller than the plant itself, as you can see. So what I've done is I just put some rocks on the bottom, and I don't know if you can see that. I actually put them in a saucer that kind of elevated them, but you could just put rocks in the bottom. So I did that, and then I have a saucer to catch the drainage. And the plant actually just rests on top of that. And the rocks and the saucers lift the plant up so that it's more at the level of the pot. But yeah, as far as fertilizing, fertilize this plant once a month, spring through fall, with an all-purpose indoor plant fertilizer. I would stagger that with an African violet fertilizer. And with this one, I really would do that. I like to use this variety made by Espoma. There's an African violet fertilizer and an indoor plant fertilizer. Both are organic. You can use whatever variety of fertilizer you like though. I would just stick to indoor or African violet fertilizer. Strictly because the soil pH, you want a soil pH of 5.5 to 6.2, which is acidic to slightly acidic. And that will encourage, especially staggering in the African violet fertilizer, will encourage the soil to lean towards the pH you want. Also, once in a while, I would use some distilled water to reduce the amount of minerals in the soil and just, keep the soil very clean when it comes to the type of water you use. So you're not using hard tap water all the time and only hard tap water. As far as the type of soil that you want to use for this plant, I would use an indoor plant potting soil mixed with African violet soil. So I would do half indoor plant potting soil and half African violet soil. And if you have perlite or peat moss available, I would add those in there too, just to increase the aeration. You really just want a soil that can drain well because you want that airspace around the roots and the rhizomes to keep that system healthy. So do keep that in mind. And you're going to want to repot your plant. Every other year is a good time to do that, or as often as the plant gets it, as often as the plant becomes overly root bound. Root bound is okay, but just you don't want it to be overly root bound. You'll be able to tell the rhizomes will be pushing on the sides of the plastic pot that you have the plant in. And I do recommend using this setup. The plastic pot helps the plant retain a level of humidity around the roots with that porous potting soil. It's a really, really great combo. I would stick to this. But yeah, do repot it once every other year. And that also just keeps the airspace in there. If you need to take some of the offsets out, like say there's too many and it's pushing the sides of the pot and you want to keep your plant in the same size pot, your options are you could get a larger pot, or you can keep it in the same size pot and just divide it. You can share the offsets with friends, or you can compost them. It's pretty much up to you, whatever you have time for. You can also propagate this plant via leaf cuttings. If you cut the leaf at the base, you can root it in water, or you can root it with perlite, water, and rooting hormone. It's pretty much up to you, whatever's easier. That is another way to propagate this plant. As far as toxicity goes, this plant has a low toxicity level rating. However, it is toxic to cats and dogs. So, the most toxicity, however, is in the roots. So it's not as common, I don't think, but there are some cats and dogs out there that might be cats and dogs that like to dig into your plants, and that might be more of an issue if you think they might encounter like chewing on the roots, or if you think they might eat the plant, because the plant is toxic to them. So just know that most of the toxicity is in the roots. However, the plant is toxic to cats and dogs. On a larger scale, it's rated as a low toxicity plant. As far as fun facts about this plant, it is rated as a clean air plant. It reduces levels of benzene in the air, which is pretty fun. And yeah, I think that's about it. If there's any questions that you might have about this plant that maybe I didn't cover in this video, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. Once again, this is a Rex Begonia, and my name is Jason. Thanks again for hanging out.